We're looking at the Ferrari pit and just outside it, not invited in for obvious reasons, Peter Windsor.
That's right, Matt, yes. Well, I'm watching the final preparations at Ferrari, and of course it's all very well to talk about Michelin being very good here and Bridgestone perhaps struggling, but of course Bridgestone are really in the hands of Michael Schumacher, and he's been playing a very difficult game this weekend because, as we know, he has the spare car, which is the old Ferrari in the middle there, and he's just about to get into the new car. And probably what he will not be able to do in the warm-up is run new tyres, new car. He cannot barcode a new set of tyres to that new Ferrari because it's still possible in the race, for whatever reason, he might have to drive the old car. So my guess is that he'll probably run scrub tyres from yesterday on that new car and then do a couple of installation laps in the spare car, which is set up for him, maybe even on wet tyres. And Michael, of course, has done a great job of not using all his 4 sets of qualifying tyres yesterday. He still has 1 set left over, and that's typical of Michael Schumacher, and possibly explains why we're currently saying Bridgestone aren't right there.
So, Peter, are you saying that if Michael ran into some kind of trouble, pit exit is now open and the warm-up session is beginning, but if Michael ran into some kind of trouble with a 2002 car in this morning's warm-up session, he would be allowed to revert to the 2001 car?
Oh yes, there's never been a time when he hasn't been allowed to revert to it. It's a question of not using more than 10 sets of tyres. And what he can't do is take new tyres off the race car and put them on the spare car. So it's a difficult juggling act for him. That's why he's tried to keep as many new sets of tyres in reserve for race day today.
But the
other point just to make about Bridgestone is that their new tyre here is a new rear tyre. Last year they felt they were losing traction out of that long slow corner that leads onto the pit straight. This year they've come back with a better tyre there, and they've lost a little bit with understeer on fast corners now, but they've definitely improved as Rubens Barrichello goes out in his race car. Anyway, it's very noisy, so back to you.
Okay. I just want to confirm to the viewers my thoughts on this is that the 2001 car can be used because it's been nominated as Michael's T car, as his reserve car. So if there's any confusion about is he allowed to, that's what I was trying to get Pete to say, is there any confusion about being able to skip from the 2002 to the 2001? No, because it has been nominated as his T car.
Whichever car, he's currently on intermediates now. Is there anything to be read into that? Is that perhaps they've had a weather forecast?
Just scrubbing them in. It just, yeah. When these, sorry Ben, when these tyres are made, there's a releasing agent on the mould, and really you don't want that agent on the tyre if you have to use them in mixed weather conditions. So he just wants to abrade that off on the surface, ready to go quickly if those tyres are needed.
Listening in and wants to join in. Peter.
Well, yes, no, that is the point. What Michael is not doing is using up his race sets. That's why he's going to run intermediates or very scrub sets of old tyres from yesterday, because he needs to keep as many new sets of tyres available for the race in case he has to juggle the cars. So that's why he's out on intermediates at the moment. It's a tyre that doesn't...
There's Ralph there, not particularly quick, but just installation lap looks like more than anything. But they'll be coming out pretty shortly.
Here we are, we're having a take a on board with Ralph Schumacher, and again it's absolutely glorious day at Interlagos. You can see no clouds in sight at all. That's going to bring the track temperature up, and as we know, that's going to help the Michelin users, and that includes these two boys. Juan Pablo Montoya, there he is, ready to jump into the spare car now. This is the first time that they've had the opportunity to jump from one to the other without a problem, and now Montoya about to go out in the spare car here and just make sure that everything is okay with it.
Well, he's going to be a pretty happy boy, isn't he, Ben? You know, pole position. This is his 4th pole position of his career in Formula One, and I think that run down to the centre S's is pretty daunting. There's been some great action there, and of course, last year between himself and Michael, it's one of probably the most famous incidents from the season last year, of when he overtook Michael Schumacher in a very late braking exercise, and they both somehow got through it. But I think they were rubbing wheels, weren't they?
They were banging wheels, there's no doubt about it. And of course we saw much the same in Malaysia last time. We've got a perfect top 3 really, haven't we? The top 3 in the championship, they're going to be top 3 on the grid.
Tyres continue to obsess Peter Windsor. Here he is with more.
Yeah, sorry about this, Matt. I thought you might be interested to see the second, what appears to be a second valve on the McLaren wheels here. We understand that's actually a pressure sensor, so they can monitor the pressures of the tyres in real time in the garage. Over here, if we can just point the camera over to this gentleman, he's doing a barcode check on the tyres right now. That is to ensure that the right sets of tyres are being used by the right driver at any given moment. Anyway, back to you.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, it's very important that they keep a close eye on which tyres are being used. With the limits in force, nobody allowed to use tyres that haven't been marked up. On board here with Michael Schumacher, you just see him correcting the car a little bit. I imagine that he's going to now do a flying lap, is he? Or is he going to come? No, he is coming straight back in again. So once again, Michael just getting the car out there, making sure everything's all right. But he always pushes, Michael, even if it's a reconnaissance lap just to make sure the car's okay. He's always pushing, isn't he? Yeah,
Dave Coulthard's actually pushing at the moment. He's just set the fastest first sector time in this particular session anyway, 41.5. So it'll be interesting to see what it comes out as, but nobody's actually set a time yet.
No, it's early stages in the morning warm-up, and again it's the old hop from one to the other. He's just done a few laps in the 2001 car, now he's back in the 2002 car. This is he'll be hoping to race this afternoon, but remember, it will be the first time that it's actually been raced. He has an amazing finishing record here in Brazil. You just have to wonder whether that finishing record, it's almost by the law of numbers, it's about time he had a mechanical problem here in Brazil, because he's won. He's always finished. He's always been on the podium except on one occasion. So that new Ferrari for Michael, it's a little bit of a juggle, I suppose, to see whether it will finish the race here today. Coulthard jumping into his race car. Fellow Scot Alan McNish just waiting to come back out. And of course his first race here at Interlagos, have to get used to the bumps and the anti-clockwise nature. Over 71 laps, it's going to be quite tough.
Well, he's used to bumps because he's been racing in America quite a lot in sports cars, and believe me, some of the tracks out there are incredibly bumpy. But so we're at the beginning of some radio communication with Mika Salo. Mika, it just shows our expectations changed, doesn't it? Because Salo wasn't happy to just be in 10th position after qualifying for Toyota.
No, that's right. That's a very good point, actually. They were so happy early on in the season, yet he made the comment, didn't he, afterwards, well, we could do better than this now.
Exactly. I mean, their expectations are growing all the time. We've got Heifeld
button 3, and you'll see Nick Heifeld posting the first flyer of this session.
Montoya just waiting there to be out in the car. I'm surprised that maybe there's a little area of concern here, because he doesn't look quite as relaxed as we might think, and I would imagine him to be in one or other car at this stage. So I don't know if there's, just looking at the tyres, wondering what's going on there. Tyres will be, no doubt, the deciding factor of this afternoon's race, I think, barring accident and disaster. Michael Schumacher ready to come out. He's got his groove tyres on the 2002 car, ready to come out for a few laps in this warm-up.
Now, Heifeld didn't complete the lap, and nobody seems to be completing the lap just at the moment. So as soon as we see a time come up, we'll tell you what's happening there. But Jacques Villeneuve now coming onto the track. It looked like it stopped for a moment.
Saying a practice start, yeah. We were just looking at Channel 4, and on that, certainly we saw him stopped at the end of the pit lane. It was where a couple of guys had problems yesterday, and I think he's just practicing the launch control. Interesting that they're using launch control, of course, and usually what they tend to do is hold the car on the brake and hold it on a button as they get ready to start the race, and then release the button and the brake, depending on the system. And that's very useful here in Brazil, because the grid is actually on an incline, and in the past there's been problems here with drivers trying to hold the car on the brake and using the clutch as well.
Excuse me a moment, Ben, but if you go to Channel 3, if you press 3 on your control, well, he's got going again, but he seems to have some problem there. That's Michael Schumacher exiting the pits, and he just sat there for ages. I don't know what he's doing. I mean,
I think it was just a practice start. Why they wait that long, I don't know. Presumably they're getting information as to who's going around the corner.
It might be that. It might be also resetting everything to make sure the launch control is all set to go. Just looking inside the Williams pit there, Frank Williams with Ralf Schumacher, and good to see them talking during this warm-up as they're preparing for the race this afternoon. Let's just take a look. A little bit of a replay. Now, this is in fact, he went a little wide there coming out of the pit lane exit.
That's Rubens Barrichello.
No, I think that's Michael, yeah.
Beg your pardon, the captain just out Rubens Barrichello, and I'm silly.
No, it was Michael coming out, but he stopped after that, didn't he? So I don't think there's a problem, but I think he's doing what he always does, which is seeing how fast he can go coming out of the pit lane, important for the stops. Now riding on board with Rubens Barrichello.
Okay, a drama at the Williams pit, and who better to comment on drama than Peter Windsor?
Well, slight drama. It's unusual to have all three cars in the garage at this stage of the warm-up. That's because there is something going on with the spare car here. I just asked Craig White, Ralf Schumacher's race engineer, if there was a problem, and he said, yeah, a slight problem, but not too bad. But neither driver going out in their race car, and I can only assume that's because they just don't want to put mileage on the race engines, and they're waiting for that spare car problem to be solved. A lot of mechanics working there, but be interesting to see if they get the car out before the end of the session.
Well, back to Rubens Barrichello in car, and this gives you a great example of the Interlagos track, what these guys will be going through. Full up with fuel now, and Barrichello putting in the fastest mid-sector at the moment, so yet to be seen if he completes the lap. He'll be the first person to really set any kind of time. If Villeneuve actually set a 1:19.8, which I guess could be his race lap, couldn't it? 19.8.
Barrichello there going quite a lot faster than that with a 1:17.8, but Michael Schumacher's on a quick lap at the moment as well.
His teammate is flying, you're right, Ben.
Yeah, actually I want to come back to that thing about that pit exit thing, because we saw both Villeneuve and Michael Schumacher stop pretty much at the end of that pit exit. Now, I wonder if there might be a problem there. And I'll tell you for why. When you're coming out of that pit lane, you're allowed to exit there on a light system. Now, if those lights are red, you're not allowed to exit because there's cars coming. Observers have seen cars coming. If they're green, you can go. So as green, they've obviously gone past it. But then they've stopped, and then they're deciding when to come onto the track, possibly without the clear vision of what's coming around the corner. So I think that I wonder if there's going to be. Well, yeah, really. I wonder if something's going to be mentioned about that, because that green light is normally given go, go, go with the full expectation that they go and join the track, not wait there to decide when they're going to do it.
Well, Michael Schumacher's just gone fastest in this session. You can see he's pushing pretty hard in the 2002 car, and down into the 1:16 straight away. In fact, David Coulthard's just gone second fastest as well, also in the 1:16. So that's promising performance from the McLaren Mercedes. Now Michael's backed right off here. That's interesting to watch, and so perhaps not trying to give away too much in terms of the potential pace of the car to all the other teams watching the times. That's partly why, Perry, when we get to the morning warm-up, although we look at the times and we see who's going fast, it's not always particularly relevant to the race itself.
It's definitely not going to be relevant if he carries on with those tricks, because we won't have a clue what he's capable of if he doesn't keep his foot down. Mind you, after saying that, with Michael Schumacher, you do have a clue what he's capable of. He's capable of winning probably anything out there. Okay, that's maybe overestimating him, but the guy is just brilliance personified, isn't he?
He is great, yes, and of course managing to split the Williams BMWs yesterday was quite an achievement. Got him on the front row of the grid. It means that he's going to be in the battle on that run to the first corner, and well, we'll have to see what happens as he battles with Montoya again. So it's Michael from Barrichello at the moment, Coulthard, and Felipe Massa's just popped up there, so that's the Sauber driver, also on Bridgestones, remember. The track temperature's cooler, though, at the moment, remember, than it will be when we get to the race this afternoon, and a fair bit cooler than it was in qualifying yesterday.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see exactly when Montoya does decide to stay in and keep his foot in and complete a lap, exactly what the relative performance between the Williams on full tanks to the Ferrari 2002 on full tanks is going to be. And Michael putting his foot down very early there, getting the power out. You see that backslide in there, he's trying to put the power down as early as possible. I would suspect he's going to complete this lap now, having put that effort into coming out of that turn as he did, yes.
So this is going to be a fairly quick lap. Once again from Michael Schumacher, he's already fastest. That was almost the same sort of time that he did before, as you can see, within a few hundredths of a second. And we just see that Sauber are running the tyres that they ran in qualifying yesterday. Just take a look at the two Minardis getting themselves into a little bit of bother here. Oops, that was a bit tight, wasn't it?
Coulthard's fast.
It's, you know, Minardi's great. They're normally the first out for warm-up session, which means that, of course, they get a bit of TV, or first out for qualifying, they get a bit of TV. Now they're providing entertainment in these sessions to have a race between themselves as well. This is fantastic.
We mustn't forget, actually, that Mark Webber did a good job yesterday, didn't he? Because he got himself ahead of one of the arrows, and that's really much their target at the moment.
Yeah, and I wonder if there was a little bit of damage there.
Yeah, that's Alex Young.
That's Alex, who has just spun off. And
no damage done.
He had a failure. If it was
he gets more practice at recovering from spins than anybody else, doesn't he?
He does seem to, but he's doing quite a good job, hasn't he? He kept the engine running again. You know, we've seen a number of drivers stall it when they've gone off this weekend, but he's getting good practice, as you say, at making sure that the engine keeps running. And once again, he was using that new runoff where they've replaced the gravel track with this extra grippy tarmac. Let's take a look and see what happened here. Comes into the quick right-hander at Ferradura, the horseshoe corner, and he just ran wide, didn't he?
He just stayed out there too late, locked up, stayed out too late, got on the dusty bit. I mean, this circuit's quite dirty offline, isn't it?
It's going to be even more dirty now, isn't it?
Exactly.
With all that being kicked up. But, well, at least he managed to get back onto the track, and hopefully they'll be able to continue the session without too many problems. We're back in the Williams pit here.
Yeah, there's only 4 people in pit at the moment, actually, Ralph being one of them. Everybody else is out on the circuit. Current order is Schumacher, Barrichello, Coulthard, Jenson Button's in 4th position at the moment, Raikkonen, Heidfeld, and Felipe Massa. Felipe Massa, it's a lovely little story with Felipe. It's his, definitely his 3rd time here, first as a driver though, but a few years back his manager owned a local foods chain, and they were supplying the food to Benetton, and he'd come along in a little truck delivering bread and jam and bananas and everything else to Benetton. So it's amazing. Next time Formula 1 teams are there, that person delivering food to you could be a next Grand Prix star.
Ralf Schumacher has yet to set a lap. He's still sitting in the pits, but teammate here, Juan Pablo Montoya, is on a run. As you see, he goes 4th fastest straight away, half a second off Michael Schumacher, so I wonder if that's going to be relevant this afternoon. As we say, of course, the warm-up times are always difficult to read, and the temperatures will be quite different later. It's still the 2 Ferraris at the top, with the McLaren of Coulthard 3rd, then Montoya ahead of Button, who's put in a quick lap already, Raikkonen, Heidfeld, Massa and De La Rosa in 9th place, just ahead of Alan McNish with the 10th fastest time. Here comes Button again. Let's see if that's any further improvement. No, he stays down there in 5th place at this point.
Ralph, the bottom of the table.
Exactly, we've still got him in the pit, so that's not exactly what Williams want to see.
No, that's bad news indeed for Ralph, and let's hope they can get the problem sorted out. We heard from Peter earlier that they had some problems down there. Michael back in. You can see the tyre and the brakes working very hard. Quite a lot of smoke coming off the brakes, but this isn't one of the toughest tracks on brakes, so they shouldn't have too much difficulty there. Just the temperatures climbing, of course, during the day, and these brakes running up to about 1,000 degrees Celsius when they're working hard, so a lot of heat to be dissipated. Michael at the top of the table at the moment.
Well, going on your what you were talking about with brakes, is that there is a lot of heat to be dissipated, and Williams over the last couple of Grand Prix haven't been dissipating it very well. If that car stands still for too long, if their drivers come in from practice too quickly without cooling the brakes and that car sits there for too long, we've seen a couple of brake fires from Williams, haven't we? And what they come on the radio to tell the drivers to do in any session like this is to make sure you're lifting off, come in, cool the brakes before you stop. Now, what I've been wondering is, in a race situation, if that car were to come in and there's a delay, let's say with the fueling hose or whatever the score is, and that car's just sitting there, I wonder if their brakes will go after like 12 or 15 seconds, because it's fairly critical on their timing.
Yeah, it is. Well, we'll have to keep a close eye on that one, I think.
Well, it's not the best preparation, is it? You're 3rd on the grid and you've done 1 installation lap ahead of the Brazilian Grand Prix.
That's a little worrying, I would say. You won't be pleased about that at all. The winner from the last race, of course, and here he is, sitting around, not having that opportunity to get out and do some laps. I suppose you could argue he's saving tyre wear.
I wonder if Pete Windsor's listening to us, if he can check out what's going on now in the Williams pit and find out if that's a very serious problem, or if they're going to put Ralph in the T car, or if this delay is because they've junked the race car now and they're going to put Ralph out in the T car.
Fisichella we're watching now. A bit disappointing for Jordan yesterday. It was EJ's birthday. but it didn't work out for the team as such, unfortunately, with Fisichella down in 14th position.
Your wish is Peter Windsor's command. Here he is, reporting live from the Williams pit.
Yes, anything you ask me to do, Perry, I'll be there for you.
As
you can see, pretty calm and composed in the Williams garage. The work on the spare car's now been finished. Ralph's race car on the left here doesn't seem to have any problem with it at all, and Ralph just kitting himself up in the background there, you can see. Spare car actually says Montoya on it, so I would guess Ralph's probably going to go back out in his race car, do a few more laps, but he did his installation laps, and I just don't think they want to put mileage on the race engines. That's what it's all about.
I think you're right. I mean, they seem incredibly relaxed, don't they? But I thought they might want to get an idea of... I mean, would one be very happy about being the one to collect the information on how the car's handling, etc., considering he's the one on pole, while Ralph's engine sits there putting no miles on it?
Well, I think it's a case of they more or less know where they are and what they want to do, and it's a sign of the confidence of this team at the moment. Not confidence, really. I think they're being prudent, not putting any more mileage on than they need to. Don't forget, this warm-up session is about seeing whether you've got any problems with the car, and if everything feels right, there's no reason to do more than 1 or 2 laps.
Good point. Peter, could Sam or anybody give us some information on how long it takes from pit entry to pit exit? Because, you know, I wonder if we could be right that maybe Rubens, or maybe even Michael, could take a chance and go through a 3-stop strategy.
Well, I can answer that. It takes 42 seconds. It's the longest on the Formula One calendar. Very long pit entry here and pit exit. And at the moment, my guess is that Michael will be assuming that one of the Williams will be on a 2-stop strategy and one of them on a 1-stop. And what he doesn't want to do is get trapped behind them on a 2-stop, and Michael will probably therefore go for a 1-stop. He'll be trying to second-guess the Williamses. But it's very close call between the two. As I said earlier, if there's a lot of traffic, you're better off on a 1-stop. If there's no traffic, you've got a clear track, it's quicker with a 2-stop.
Peter, just to confirm, that 42 seconds, does that include an actual pit stop of, let's say, 10 seconds?
Yes, it does, yeah.
Right.
It's interesting, actually, if you look back over recent years, the battle between a 2-stop and a 1-stop, McLaren often go for the 1-stop, and they've sometimes had the edge over Ferrari by doing that. Michael's quite often gone for a 2-stop in the past, and then the traffic perhaps hasn't worked out. You can overtake around this track, of course. There's a couple of key places. But if you get stuck behind somebody going into that infield section, you end up sitting behind them for quite a long time, because you have to wait all the way until you come around to start-finish before you can overtake, and that can be enough to make a 2-stop strategy go all wrong.
Yeah, but I mean, I believe that Ferrari have got some very sophisticated software, haven't they, when they can second guess when they're going to catch back markers or traffic that they're going to have to lap and play it by ear. I think they've got quite a few different scenarios that they can employ at any one time. We've seen in the past that they may have actually started off with one particular strategy and then halfway through changed it because of the lie of the land, as it were.
Absolutely, Ross Bourne is fantastic at that. He can change so quickly their strategy, and that's something that in the past has worked well for Ferrari. I have to say, though, here at Interlagos, it's not been their best track. He did win it a couple of years ago, but Mika Hakkinen was in good shape in that race on a 1-stop race. Looked as though he might be able to beat Michael. As it turned out, he had a mechanical problem, and so he never was able to show how true that threat was. Well, we're just going to have to wait and see today, I think, in the race itself. Just riding on board here with Jacques as he heads down this fairly long straight, up to about 185 miles an hour. Again, look at that blue sky. Absolutely stunning weather conditions at Interlagos. And I know that Peter has been joking with the circuit organiser all weekend about the fact that it might rain during the race, but it doesn't look much like it's going to rain here today.
Well, if it does rain, going back to what we've been saying for the last few Grand Prix, that will actually put the advantage back firmly in Bridgestone's court, Bridgestone being the tyre supplier to Ferrari, because they do seem to be a hell of a lot better in the rain than the Michelins.
And that's very true, yeah.
So it will be interesting to see if we do get a bit more excitement with changing weather conditions. Jack's putting his welly down there on the brake pedal that time and locking up the inside right tyre. Important not to lock the brakes on these because you lose your static friction, and the car will slide wide, and then you go onto the dirty part of the track where there's no grip, and it just compounds up. So from one point you've got to brake incredibly late, from the other point, as soon as that car locks up, you're going to be losing time.
Across the line he goes, 10th fastest at the moment.
Meanwhile, on channel 4, button 4 on your remote control, Michael Schumacher is giving it some.
and also on button 1 at Master Channel. Because
I speak, you see, and they hear me.
He's that quick. He goes from like button 4 to button 1 in a blink of an eye.
Just we noticed Villeneuve a minute ago. He's starting down in 15th position, remember, today. So it wasn't a particularly good qualifying run for either of the BAR Hondas. Starting down in 15th and 17th, those two cars. And Jack started 12th here last year, so a bit disappointed with that.
I think Michael Schumacher is going to place this into the 15-second mark.
You're quite right, look at that. Yeah, he goes fastest, 15.866. So Michael keeping the fastest time in the morning warm-up, but he's doing a lot more laps, isn't he, than some of them are. He's done 11 laps so far.
A lot more than his brother, who was just on his way up to start his second.
Interesting thing is, he's just set a warm-up time 0.2 of a second slower than the fastest lap in the race last year by his brother Ralph.
Yes, that's right. But fastest lap last year, slightly slower than the lap record, because I suppose because of the conditions. We had that rain, of course, coming down during the race itself, just as they were lightening their fuel loads. And listen to that traction control working hard.
Yeah. Well, he's got to work every bit as hard as that traction control to try and get something on the table today, hasn't he? Because it's, you know, one thing that's in his advantage at the moment is that there's, apart from him, there's 3 cars that can win. Now, if they take points off each other, at least Michael's not running away into the distance while they get the McLaren and the Mercedes sorted to their absolute liking.
Let's see what this lap's going to be. Sounds like just almost just hitting the rev limiter almost on the straight there. 16.7. So that's a fair bit slower. Third fastest at the moment. So David will be reasonably happy with that.
Actually,
of course,
he's just got bumped because Pedro de la Rosa has just gone second fastest.
Wow. Where did
in
that
the
come
Jaguar, exactly. Well, that could very well come from not having an awful lot of fuel in the car.
I would imagine so, yes. De La Rosa in the Jag, up to second fastest. That's quite something. Montoya flying around again. And we saw a huge number of Colombian fans in the grandstands today. They really have turned out in huge numbers to support their man.
Ben, if De La Rosa's setting a very quick time like this, and to do that maybe it hasn't got a lot of fuel in it, then do you think they could be practicing for a multi-stop?
Well, that's definitely possible, yes. From slightly further back, that's where we might see people taking a few more risks on strategy. And Jaguar, they've got a reliable car. It's been reliable throughout the first few races. It hasn't been particularly fast, but they may well decide to take a bit more of a gamble. And De La Rosa, again, he's on a good lap now, you know, so once again they're pushing fast. McNish has moved up to a pretty promising 7th place. Has been very good in the races, particularly the opening laps in Malaysia. Alan McNish was a real star, fighting his way past a number of cars, and was very unlucky to lose out on getting the final point. Oh dear, someone's in big trouble. That looks like it's from an Arrows. It's an orange wheel.
Orange giveaway.
And Bernoldi's car is stopped on track, I can tell you, so it looks as though there's several cars stopped down there. I don't know whether anyone else got tied up in that. There is Bernoldi. Oh my dear, that's been a big accident indeed for Enrique Bernoldi. And look at that, somebody still just going past him on the grass. I don't know who that was. I think it might have been Michael, in fact, who just got... Oh, Heidfeld. It's crashed as well. He's involved in that. Dear, oh dear.
Hopefully we can see a replay of that, making sure everybody's okay, of course. But that does look like a hard hit for Enrique. As ever with these things, it'd be interesting if it's cause or effect, that if the right rear came off, they sent him into the wall, or if that was a result of hitting the wall. But he's done a fairly comprehensive job on that. I don't think they're going to have that ready for this afternoon, Ben.
You could be right there, Perry.
We've obviously
a lot of work to do for
flag.
that one.
The session's being stopped.
But they will have a spare car, of course, and so they'll have to try and get him out of that. Arrows are just having such a tough time.
Look at this. You were right about saying going past, because that's the safety car's door.
Yeah.
The last time I remember a safety car being involved in an accident was at Monaco.
It's the medical car.
Yeah, that's right.
How does that get involved?
Well, I think the car was there dealing with Bernoldi, and I don't know if it was Heidfeld. I think it was Heidfeld who went to the left, basically squeezed between Bernoldi's damaged car and the barrier. And we'll have to wait and see to confirm that on the pictures, but that's what it looks like, as everybody was still trying to sort themselves out. And I'm very surprised, because the Reds, I think, must have been out by then. Well,
exactly. I don't know why Nicky was still going that quickly, because we'd been looking at Enrique for a good enough time.
Well, here's a replay of the latter part of the accident. Rear wheel coming off. Look at the fire as well. That's an unusual sight in Formula One nowadays, you have to say. And the wheel coming off now. Michael, no, that's Rubens, I think, coming through. This was Heidfeld, and it was just after it happened. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear.
Well, that was lucky. I mean, for Nicky himself, he's lucky not to have his head taken off in that. But what he was doing, not looking at the flags like that. I mean, it caught Michael out, but he did have just a little bit longer. In fact, I'm surprised it caught Michael out as it did.
Well, it was time, of course, for the medical car to get there. So the incident must, started a few seconds before that. There must have been yellows at least, even if the red hadn't been called for at that precise second. So really, Heidfeld could get into serious trouble for that. I mean, the remarkable thing is that the driver getting out of that car had only just opened the door and wasn't actually getting out of the car at that precise point. Otherwise, we could have had a really, really nasty incident on our hands.
Well, thank goodness we've just averted, just seen what could have been a real tragedy there, happily end.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's very worrying for everyone involved in Formula One. How an incident like that can happen. Remember, they have got lights in the cars this year. They do have the yellow light when a yellow flag comes out somewhere around the track. They actually get a yellow light in the car, and when the reds come out, red light in the car. So I don't quite know what happened there for Heidfeld. It all happened very quickly, and perhaps nobody saw that the accident had happened for Bernoldi, and therefore perhaps the flags weren't out at Heidfeld. But the medical car was there, so they knew what was going on.
If we've got time, I think we're going to have time. If we can be good to see that once again, to just try and see how Enrique did go off, because we've not really seen where he lost the car for whatever reason. If we can get back to that.
Well, I have to say, very dramatic indeed. Let's take another look.
This is just the aftermath, of course.
Rear wheel comes off. The tether's unfortunately not keeping that wheel on, and despite the extra strength, now we've got flags that the red was already out there. The red was already on display at that point. He should have had reds, and the door opens and through comes Heidfeld. Oh.
But it wasn't quite waving, and there was a marshal standing in front of it. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't a flamboyant wave, look out, there's danger here.
Well, that was the moment that Heidfeld came through. But we saw that a little time after we'd seen the wheel bouncing. There was definitely several seconds gap. And there,
I think the important thing is that, yeah, sure, they got the red flag at that point, but was the message communicated to the previous marshal's post? So did Nicky go through one or two red messages, if you like, and to then find out from his telemetry if the red light came on his steering wheel, which picks it up? So it may have just all happened so quickly, and he didn't see the red flag from that downhill section.
Sid Watkins, the safety delegate of the FIA, the medical man who's been so important in recent years in terms of improving safety. That's the medical car. So it was actually the safety car, or they've switched cars, in fact. Alex Ribeiro, the driver, another Brazilian, and they get that car back out. There is the one that has been damaged, and that really is a very, very frightening incident. Shows you how quick they are getting to the scene, though, Perry, if nothing else. I mean, they were to Bernoldi so fast. The car is parked down at the end of the pit lane, and that area of the track is where the incident happened, down at the end of the pit lane. So they were right on it right away, but unfortunately so was Heidfeld, and he was still at speed.
I'm trying to really completely work out what the benefit of the medical car stroke safety car was coming onto the track like that in front of the arrows. I'm not completely sure, because the cars were coming from behind, so if it's trying to act as a shield, Bernoldi's car certainly wasn't going anywhere.
Well, he's okay. Enrico Bernoldi walking back into the pits. This session still has some 3 minutes left to run of actual track time, but it's going to take a little while to clear up the mess down there from the incident, and we still don't know exactly what caused Bernoldi to go off. We're not clear whether he made contact with something or whether there was a failure on the car, but whatever it was, we very nearly had a horrible incident down there at the first corner.
And my car was a little bit on the side of the track, and Heidfeld came really quickly. I was going out of my car because my car was in fire, and he avoided my car, but he hit the medical car.
And why did you go off in the first place?
I went off. I just touched the curb a little bit too much, and I got a wheel spin, and I spun there. There's not much area to go off there.
How much time passed before you came to rest and Heidfeld hit the safety car?
A lot of cars has passed there already. Was maybe 5 or 6 cars have gone through there, and then came him. He was probably the last car.
Okay, thanks very much.
Well, thanks, Peter. That cleared up why he crashed.
Well, you will have noticed there, Perry and Ben and just about everybody else watching, there were no other reporters anywhere near Bernaldi there. Only Peter Windsor gets interviews like that. He's doing a cracking job out there, and I'm sure will continue to do so. In the meantime, plenty of question marks still surrounding that event. What was the medical car doing there quite so quickly?
Well, I think that's a good thing. I think that the fact that the medical car was there quickly is a good thing. That shows you that they're responding quickly to an incident. What the worry is, why was Heidfeld still going so quickly? You know, we're looking at the replay of the wheel going across. A number of other cars had gone through at this point, and it was Heidfeld. I don't understand why Heidfeld was still so much on the limit. Michael Schumacher, you saw him go through the picture just a moment before that, and he had time to slow down and go through on the other side. So I don't understand why Heidfeld was still going that quickly and why he wasn't able to respond and slow down in time and avoid the medical car.
The only thing is, though, when you saw Michael come up to that seemed to catch him by surprise.
There, look, there's Michael. But he's not going that quickly. He's not on the limit, is he? Whereas Heidfeld is on the limit. He's on a quick lap there. He's come through the first 2 corners really fast. And I don't understand why he's going so quickly and everyone else seemed to have backed off.
Well, at least he chose the right exit at the end of the day rather than hitting the arrows. But, yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's going to be looked into. Yeah, that's going to be really looked into.
But if you can take Barrichello's incident yesterday exiting the pit lane as a precedent, he's going to be in trouble because Barrichello hardly had any chance to see that red light, and yet he had to accept his second fastest time.
Very different story altogether, wasn't it? I mean, that was a red light at the end of the pit lane. There was there was an incident on track, but it wasn't a major accident. And as he went out, the red light changed. We could see that on our coverage, and I feel sorry for Rubens on that one. But a rule's a rule. This time, you know, the FIA will know exactly when the red light went on. They've got the coverage. I do find it difficult to understand why Heidfeld was the only one who seemed to be going quite that quickly. We saw on the replay there was 1 or 2 other cars had actually gone through past Bernaldi's car before that, and they were waving a striped flag down there to show a slippery surface.
No. They were waving the wrong flag.
Yeah, just looking at the coverage, they were waving the slippery surface flag initially before the red, but the red was definitely out by the time that Heidfeld came through that corner. So, I mean, maybe the red lights came on as he turned into the left-hand part. That's the center S. So maybe he was already committed through the left-hand part as the red light came on. He wouldn't have necessarily seen the red light come on. Here we are. Take another look. The Toyota goes through. The Jag goes through. The slippery and yellow flags being waved down there. He goes to get the red flag, the marshal, brings the red out, and then through comes Heidfeld. Well,
it's going to be interesting to see what the officials and everybody at the circuit make of that, because, you know, that, in my opinion, that was the wrong flag to wave. That shows a slippery surface rather than a completely smashed up Formula 1 car. It's going to be interesting to see what the marshals post before that one was displaying to the drivers. And I think, really, that's going to be Nicky Heidfeld's only way out of getting into serious trouble here, because, you know, if it's a slippery surface flag, then basically, as a driver, you decide, you know, it's an advice flag. You decide if you're going to take it flat or lift or whatever. But it might have transmitted after Nicky had gone past to go red. We can surmise all we like on this.
And of course, you know, don't forget a Formula 1 car, when it's travelling at speed and he was on a quick lap, you cover so much distance in such a short space of time. And when they went to get that red flag, you know, notice that the marshals almost withdrew the other flags. Now, if Nicky had been turning in at that precise point, he almost wouldn't have seen a flag. But I think that the red lights came on at about the point he would have gone committed to the first part of the center S.
He's looking at a replay of the incident himself.
Yeah, that's right. It's still, you know, it's still a shock that a number of cars had got through there, and Nick was still so committed. But I'm sure he's trying to explain that. There he is, Heidfeld, talking to the team, trying to explain what happened from his perspective, and only he really knows what he saw, what flags he saw, and what was going on down there.
Well, at the end of the day, it's, you know, just thank goodness both Nicky and Enrique are okay. That's the number one thing. If there was fault to be attached to this, whoever it was, whatever, no, everybody's okay, and that's testament to the strength of the cars, for one thing. Not necessarily the Mercedes passenger door, though.
No, I was just thinking, Perry. I mean, most racing drivers get used to crashing. It's something that's sort of part of being a racing driver. And often you can get out of a crash like Bernoldi had, big shunt. It doesn't really trouble you, it doesn't really shake you in many ways. But that accident, that will shake Nicky,
yeah,
wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would have scared him, because that's so different, and that is it's funny to say that that would scare you and something else wouldn't. I can only presume that would have upset him, because and the other thing is as well is that he's thinking, why? How did this happen to me? Now, if it was his mistake, then he's got himself to blame.
Yeah. That's where the medical car was positioned. I mean, it couldn't have been closer, really.
No, that's right. It is very close down there. That's where it is stationed for a quick access to the track. And certainly it was very fast getting to the point. And of course, that was a dramatic accident. The car caught fire there. That looked like a big accident for Bernoldi. He was fine, in fact, as it turned out. He got out of the car. The medical car was very quickly on the scene. They would have had clearance to join at that time from race director, and they joined and got in front of the car. So the response was great, but the response from Nick Heidfeld not so great. But as we say, exactly the schedule of when he saw flags, difficult for us to say. Hopefully we might get to hear from him later on.
Could it be that he was going so much faster than those that got through that he was going to spin anyway at that point?
I don't think he was going to spin anyway, but I think, you see, in the warm-up, not everybody's on a quick lap all the time. Sometimes they would have just finished a quick lap and they would have already slowed down. So some of those guys who came through may well have already been coasting to a certain extent, whereas Nick was just going on to a quick lap. And the timing of it, I think maybe he was just committing to the first part of the corner as the reds came out, and therefore, despite the onboard light system that is on the car now, perhaps it wasn't time for him to react to that, and he was on the limit. Now look, a few guys practicing their launch control coming out of the pits as the session restarts.
Yeah, I'm going to be interested to see how this one pans out as well. I really am.
You think the FIA is going to get a bit upset about the fact that these guys are doing this?
I think this is certainly open for debate. I really do, because they've been given clearance to go at the end of that pit lane.
Yeah.
And now they're taking it into their own minds when they want to go. We just saw a Jaguar overtake them. That's. Yeah. Anyway, that's none of my business, I guess. But I'm kind of expecting it to be mentioned in dispatches, if you like.
Yeah. Well, maybe something will be said about that. We'll have to.
But just take up your point, actually, Ben, about the safety car and medical cars being on standby in Formula One. It's great. Their response time is fantastic, and in real adverse situations, everything that can be done to help a driver who's maybe sustained injury and he needs help immediately, and that's a great thing. And we've of course got our resident medical expert, Professor Sid Watkins, who's not only a very, very smart fellow, but very personable chap as well.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the nicest blokes in motor racing. There's no doubt about that. True enthusiast for it as well. And, well, let's just hope that everything settles down now. You notice that they were very quickly into the spare medical car. They had one sitting there all kitted out, all ready to go. They are fully organised for this sort of thing.
Yeah, but who was it set up for, Sid or the other driver?
Good point, yeah, might have to make a slight line height change.
Yeah.
De La Rosa on track. We've only got 30 seconds of this session to go, and the morning warm-up here in Brazil has certainly provided us with plenty of drama. Watching it here with us, Matt, and you don't get a chance to see this sort of thing happening normally. The morning warm-up, it's a session. Sometimes things like this happen, which can completely turn around the whole weekend. Other times, not much happens at all. And
I'm just wondering about how popular those drivers are going to be in their respective pits. I mean, that's Sunday lunch right out the game, isn't it, for their teams?
Absolutely. Though, I mean, the Arrows team are going to be flat out. We just had a quick look out in the pit garage. They've got the spare, and they'll have to run the spare. They're not going to be able to get the race car back together, I don't think, to act as a spare. So it means that Bernoldi and Frentzen won't have a spare car effectively unless they can perform some sort of miracle on that car. We are at the end of the session now, so checkered flag is out. So Ralf Schumacher just finishing off. Michael Schumacher, I don't think he went back out again when the session restarted. He ends up as the fastest, and De La Rosa will be happy to end up the second fastest time.
Well, it's rather been lost, what with the accident and Ralf being bottom of the list at the moment, but that's an incredible performance.
It is for De La Rosa. I mean, I think Jaguar, after two races where they were so far off the pace. Eddie managed to drag it home in 4th place in Australia, which was a great effort, but the car was slow, there's no doubt about it. Now there seems to be a bit more buoyant mood there, I should think. Sam Michael at Williams, keeping a close eye on the times in this morning warm-up, watching the temperature still climb.
Yeah, Ralph from last to 4th there with just the 1 lap.
Yeah, that was a good effort, wasn't it? He only did 6 laps in that session, so engine wear, not much of that. Tyre wear, not much of that. Ralph could be in very good shape for the race.
Well, that was Pete Windsor's point about, you know, Williams being confident, Ralph being confident. It's just been triple underlined, hasn't it? 1 lap and he puts himself 4th quickest. But this is obviously the most interesting time out there is for Pedro de la Rosa, 2nd fastest with a 16.391, and you know that's good in anybody's book, even if he's not running a massive amount of fuel. But it's going to be very interesting to see what they do with strategies. Now, I can't believe that both he and Eddie Irvine have been out there with the same amount of fuel, because unfortunately in the sister car Eddie Irvine has placed 15th from warm-up session with 17.4, which means that he's about 1.1 seconds off, just over a second off.
We've been talking about Pedro de la Rosa and his 2nd place. That's a terrific achievement, one that's shared by the entire Jaguar team, as Peter Windsor now reports.
Yes, I'm with John Russell, designer of the R3. John, Pedro P2 this morning, how much should we read into that?
Not a lot, we're just working through a programme, so I think our performance here is reflected by qualifying yesterday.
But the car, nonetheless, is getting better, right?
Yes, I mean, I think, you know, probably the circuit suits us better than the previous 2 have. We're working pretty hard at sorting out the problems and making steady progress.
A little bit about Pedro, done a lot of testing, a lot of work over the winter and persevered.
Absolutely, maintaining an extremely buoyant attitude through a difficult winter testing, and we're starting to see the dividends of it.
Great, well, very best of luck in the race.
Okay, thank you.
Will be.
Thanks, John.
Good to hear from Jaguar. Things are looking slightly up, perhaps. This is a different kind of track,
It's
of
more
course.
than slightly, isn't it? Because everybody has been having a go at them, having a laugh at them.
I think what you've got to bear in mind, though, as John was saying there, this track perhaps suits them better. This is not a track that requires a lot of aerodynamic downforce in the way that some tracks do, like Barcelona in particular, where the whole shape of the car, not just the front wing and the rear wing, but the whole shape of the car determines how fast it is through fast sweeping corners. And you don't have those kind of corners here. I think it's those sort of corners. We did have some in Malaysia. There's 1 or 2 in Australia as well, where the Jaguar is struggling. It's their wind tunnel program that's been a disaster. Thankfully, they've got their new wind tunnel opening up very soon.
And we're just seeing a response from Sauber saying that Nicky has said there weren't yellow flags out, and then he saw the incident too late. So this is what we were wondering, wasn't it?
Yes, and I'm sure there's going to be some sort of steward's inquiry, if you like, into what happened there. Maybe that is the case, but we'll have to wait and see. Classification of the warm-up, as we say, it doesn't mean a great deal, but Ralph did move up towards the end of that session. De La Rosa, confidence boosting 2nd place. McNish up there in 9th place. Bernoldi had quite a quick time. He was 10th fastest before he had the accident.
So the push 7, you can see Nicky Heidfeld still intact on the hits and highlights. And it just showed a replay yet again of that incident, but it's going to dominate most people's thoughts, isn't it, from this particular session, no matter who's fastest, 2nd fastest or whatever. It's just we just saw something that was very, very close to the mark indeed.
Well, absolutely. I'd like to make that point because we get rather glib just watching this week in,
I mean,
week
this is
out.
people say to me all the time, oh, F1's safe now and the cars are safe and la-di-da-di-da. You know, the wrong way by a few inches on that. You know, you've got a driver who could have been very, very seriously injured. I'm talking about Heidfeld, actually. Or if Nicky hadn't have gone for that gap and had hit the car with Enrico Bernoldi standing up in it, believe me, you would have had certainly 1, maybe 2 drivers very badly injured. So it's all out there. People shouldn't be blasé about this. Safety has gone ballistic. Circuit safety is much better than it's ever been, and the construction techniques now used inside modern day Grand Prix cars are fantastic. Carbon fibre, which these cars are made from, can withstand fantastic impacts. But wrong angle, wrong place, wrong time, and believe me, you're back to getting hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, it's just such a relief, really, watching those pictures. It could have been so much worse, and it's just a relief that it all worked out okay. will have given everyone a bit of a shake, I think, a bit of a stir. So nerves will jangle a little bit, perhaps more before the start of this afternoon's Grand Prix than normally. Quick look around all of the pit garages. We're getting right inside, seeing what's going on, as usual. And the BAR team still hard at work, trying to improve on their performances. They haven't scored any points so far this year. Jacques Villeneuve managed to finish last time in Malaysia, but they just really haven't had the pace to be up there.
We had an interview yesterday with Dave Richards, who runs the BAR team now, and you get the feeling that there's a bit of politics being played, a bit of manoeuvring, because when quizzed on if Jacques Villeneuve would stay with the team for the rest of the year, if he'd be with the team next year, one of Dave Richards' answers were, look, you know, we need quick drivers, and in that respect, Jacques Villeneuve would certainly be on the list. So it isn't a question how Dave is currently playing it publicly anyway, that it's Jacques at all costs. That's it. So it's already started manoeuvring and positioning to say, okay, look, you know, we probably want to keep you and for next year, but you know, maybe there's going to be some negotiation somewhere. And there's the remains of what was Enrico Bernoldi's accident, or car, pardon me.
Yeah.
Enrico Bernoldi, I used to watch him in Formula 3, very quick driver, very, very talented guy.
He is, isn't he? I mean, he didn't have a lot of people writing great things about his first season in Grand Prix racing last year, but he did a great job. He was alongside Jos Verstappen, very experienced and a fast driver as well, and did a good job up against Verstappen throughout that. So Bernoldi's quick, but well, that certainly is not the way he wants to go into his home Grand Prix here this afternoon. And Rubens Barrichello, Felipe Massa and Enrique Bernoldi with the hopes of the nation of Brazil on them. And that's not going to be very good news for him. Starting a long way back, of course, he actually qualified last but won. So it's going to be a tough day for him.
Well, that's the remains of the arrows, but if you wish, on Super Channel, button 2 is the highlights from this session.
Yeah, a session that really was fairly settled. Everything seemed to be going normal until we saw that very scary accident involving Bernoldi's car there, and then Nick Heidfeld coming around afterwards.
All right, we can hear now from the man of the moment, Nick Heidfeld, who was involved in that very worrying collision just a few moments ago. Nick, what was your view of that accident? It seemed to happen very fast indeed.
Yeah, that was the problem. I just saw it very late. There were no yellow flags in the first chicane, and actually I had Michael's Ferrari in front, which also took a bit of the view down, so I didn't see the car until I came around the second corner, and I tried to brake. The car got a bit loose, so there was no chance to go to the right, and I had to go to the left. I thought it's going to be okay, maybe a little crash, and then unfortunately the door was opened.
Hi Nick, it's Perry McCarthy. We're all delighted to see you fit and healthy, but did you get no indication from inside the cockpit that there was a yellow or a red out?
No, I didn't see anything. Just when I, at the same moment as I see the crash, I hear my team telling me red flag, but it was too late, obviously.
Yeah.
Have you heard from the stewards or any official parties as to what's going to happen next?
No, I didn't hear anything yet, but I have to wait. As I said, I didn't see any yellow flags, nothing, and just now seeing the pictures. He just put out the red flag when I'm next to him, so I couldn't do anything.
You're feeling okay, Nick, yeah?
Yeah, I'm fine. The car's a bit damaged, but it's going to be okay for the race, I think.
Nick, thank you for joining us. Good luck with the race. Okay, plenty of highlights from that warm-up session for the Brazilian Grand Prix. It's about time we had a look at them now.